I wouldn't be surprised if some of you thought that by saying real Easter, I was going to talk today and say how terrible all of the eggs and the Peeps and the Bunnies and the chocolate is, and you're all going to have to go home today and change your Easter dinner and throw out all the chocolate and get rid of that. You thought I was going to get up here and say, oh, how could we commercialize Easter so much? What a terrible thing to do. Or some of you might have thought that when I said real Easter, that means that unless you've got some of these things, you don't have a real Easter. Right? That unless you've got you can skip the eggs if you don't like the eggs, but you've got to have a proper Easter meal. Or you can skip the Easter meal if you like, but you better come to church service. And you can skip the church service if you like, but you better get to Grandma's and have a nice Easter dinner with Grandma, whether you like it or not. You thought I was going to get up there and say, those things are the real Easter, and you were going to have to go and change all of your plans this afternoon to make sure you got that real Easter. Is that what we're saying today? What is the real Easter? Let me show you these words from Luke. Start at the end. Luke said this about some people. When the women, they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all of the others. But they did not believe the women because their words seemed like nonsense. A little background to this episode. Jesus was a rabbi, a man who lived in the first century of this world. And as he traveled around, he had 12 men who followed him. They were his students. They studied and were his disciples. They learned from him. He had 5 or so women who also came along with that group. On the day that we call Good Friday, he was put to death by both the Romans and the Jewish leaders. They buried him that evening, a very quick and hasty burial. Then, because they didn't have time, they worshiped God on Friday night and Saturday as they would in their normal tradition. Very early Sunday morning, the women came to finish the burial. When they got to the tomb, they did not find Jesus there. They came back to town, to the place where everybody was hiding and hanging out, waiting to see what had happened. And they told the rest of the people, the 11 that were left, and said, this is what we found. We found an empty tomb. And what did they all say? It seemed like nonsense. Now, if you know anything of the Jewish beliefs at the time, you can understand why it sounded like nonsense. The Jewish people believed that it was important to be good people and do the right thing, especially to be respectful of the dead. They knew that the Jewish leaders did not care about Jesus and wouldn't take care of Jesus. They knew the Romans had gladly put him to death and would gladly get rid of him. These people believed that there would be a resurrection at the end of all time, but they believed in the meantime that it was their job to show love and respect for their ancestor, their friend, by giving him a proper burial. What is this? What do you mean the body's not there? That doesn't make any sense. It was nonsense. And that is what happened to the first Easter story because of their beliefs. They had a certain set of beliefs about the world and the way it worked, and the story seemed to them like nonsense. That lets me ask the question to you and I today, just like we kind of thought about with the kids, is this nonsense for us? Do our beliefs make Easter nonsense in our own lives? That is to say, I could ask it this way. Do you say to yourself, I've heard this story before, right? I've already got all my own beliefs and my own ideas about the way the world works. I've found my own empty tombs, and this is nonsense. Is that what you and I say? Let me give you an example here, and then we'll go through a couple of our own American empty tomb stories. The first empty tomb story I'd like to call the story of human rights and equality. 250 years ago, our forefathers wrote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights." See, for us, human rights equality have been an empty tomb, a magic empty tomb of sorts. In the ancient world, equality was unheard of. Aristotle, for example, said this: to conclude, it's clear that there are certain people who are free and certain who are slaves by nature. And it is both to their advantage and just for them to be slaves. There was no equality in the ancient world. Glenn Scrivener summarizes the ancient world and he says, equal how? Where's this magical realm where equality exists? You and I, we live with equality. We assume it, don't we, about life? We say there's practical things like voting rights and equal standing before the law and property rights. That is a tomb that has remade our time. And so it's easy for you and I to say, well, what do I need this Easter thing for? I've already got my rights. What's this supposed to do for me? And so does everybody else. See, that's the first empty tomb that we have as we hear this Easter story. Then there's the promise of science. I'll call that our second empty tomb story. We all got used to hearing things like follow the science or guided by the science during the pandemic. The philosopher Alex Rosenberg said, science is a demanding and rigorous, breathtaking grip on reality, one that has been vindicated beyond reasonable doubt. But this idea that science can explain everything about life and the world, that's nothing new. You know the man Newton, right? You've heard his name before. Back in the 1700s, Newton wrote in a book about this idea that all of reality could be explained by fundamental particles. A few basic particles would explain all of life. That's given us this world that you and I live in today. We have the internal combustion engine and electricity and nuclear power and quantum computing and antibiotics and everything else, all because of science. Again, it's easy to say then, isn't it? Well, that's my empty tomb. What do I need this Jesus thing for? My life is fine. I've got science to answer all my questions, and so does everybody else. What else do we need? That's another empty tomb. That makes this story kind of nonsense. Then there's the story of sex and sexuality. That's been another great story to help us make sense of our world or give us an empty tomb, so to speak. We've learned that love is good as long as it feels okay. For me, it was that song, "All You Need Is Love." It was rewritten for Moulin Rouge. All you need is love, do-do-do-do. All you need is love, right? We learned that all you need in life is love, and that will break you free from all of your chains. As long as you've got love and consent, everything is okay. And the empty tomb of sexual liberation has come then in all kinds of places. You get it from great philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche, who says, what is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil. Or even from Gloria Steinem, who says the sexual revolution is not about having sex, it's about having choice. It comes from old stories and movies where only true love's kiss will thaw our beating hearts. And it gets into stories like Frozen today, where the love of a true love will heal us. Again, right now, that's a great world that you and I get to live in. I would not want to live in the ancient times. I'm glad that I get to marry who I want because I love them and not because it's beneficial to me or to my government or to the people around me. We get to enjoy romantic love as all of part of life. That's great. But again, it's easy for this to say, well, what do I need Jesus for then? Right? Where does he fit into this life? If I've already got everything I need in love, where else does he go? I'm satisfied. Everybody else can get satisfied however they want. You see what I'm starting to say? This is how this Easter story starts to sound like nonsense. What do you need that tomb for? Right? When you've got all of these stories that give us our own empty tombs. And we could go on. There's the money story, the story that says material wealth will provide you with all the happiness you lead in life. The truth story, the one that says, everybody gets to have their own truth, And we don't have to know what the real truth actually is. As long as you've got your truth and you hold on to it, that'll be good enough in life. There's the kindness story. Let's all just be nice, and everybody will get along. We'll have a great world if we can all just be nice to each other. All I'm saying, right, there's story after story that has promised you and I an empty tomb. And when you hear enough of those, then this empty tomb sounds like nonsense, doesn't it? For you, it might not be one of those empty tombs. It might be a different one. For me, I know the empty tomb was a combination of knowledge and truth. I knew so much about life, and I didn't know how to substantiate or to prove what I thought about God. And I got to the point where I remember saying, and as I was driving along, I don't think I believe in a God anymore. I don't think there is a God. The idea of knowledge and my inability to prove anything certain about the story of Jesus in the Bible meant I had my own empty tomb. I had something that set my life free. It was my knowledge about the way the world worked. And this story then, this Easter story, became nonsense. See, for you, maybe it's been something different. You've had your own story over the years. You might have said, I believe in God, but money is just what's really important to me. Or maybe you've said, I think God is okay, but really I think as long as we could solve our political problems, the world would be a happier place. Right? Over and over, you and I have got these stories that promise an empty tomb of its own to fix our lives. And I get that, because the real Easter is so ground-shifting, so unsettling, right? So world-changing that you really have to wrestle with it to understand it. Let me explain what I mean. Look at what the angels said. They said, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He's not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee, the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Imagine with me for a second in this last story. Imagine with me that I wanted to celebrate my real birthday. I want to celebrate my real birthday. And so first, I know the date of my birthday. It's 1/1/81. Okay, we're just going to make an easy day to make it easy. 1/1/81. And I say I'm going to have a birthday party on that day, and I'm going to invite my family, and I'm going to invite my friends. We'll play some games. We'll have some fun. Then I get some life-shattering news. I was not born on 1/1/81. I was actually born on 2/2/82. And my name is not Nathaniel Thomas Timmerman. My real name is actually Nathaniel Robert Zimmerman. Now, what does that do to my birthday? In one sense, you can say, well, it doesn't change anything. I can celebrate my birthday whenever I want. Some of you might say, I've got a birthday on December 24th. I don't like celebrating my birthday on December 24th. I want to get gifts twice, so I'm going to celebrate my birthday on August 15th. Fine. Celebrate your birthday August 15th. That's your choice. You can do that. That's okay. I might say, you can invite whoever you want. If you want to call these people family and those people friends and bring them to your party, go right ahead. But what happens at a certain point? Your birthday, it's no longer founded in reality. It's not grounded in anything that's actually real. So when somebody comes to you and says, August 15th is just not a good day for me to celebrate your birthday with you, Nathaniel Robert Zimmerman. Can we move it to August 14th? You can't tell them no. Why would you ever tell them no? 14th is as good as 15th, right? My point is to say, if you want to have a real birthday, it has to have some real birthdayness behind it. And then you could go on with the same thing and say, for it to be real, and for you to have a real family and real friends, you have to be able to tell them all the real thing. They have to really know you as Nathaniel Robert Zimmerman, born on 2/2/82. and not Nathaniel Thomas Timmerman born on 1/1/81. And they have to actually be blood tied to you. That's the only way it can be a real birthday. Did you hear what the angel said to Mary and to the others? He's not here, he has risen. The Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again. You notice the angels didn't say to these guys, it was nice of you to come out. Thanks for trying. We appreciate the good effort you did. You notice they didn't say to the men, hey, the things that Jesus taught, they're still real and true. He's not here. Yeah, we know that, right? But it's still a good idea to go love everybody. You should be sure to love people, accept them and forgive them, be nice to them. That'll be great. What did they say? He's dead. He's risen. Friends, do you realize what he's saying? He's saying the real Easter is that there was a man who loved, genuinely loved all the time, and he was hated. The real Easter is that there was a guy who could confront people and forgive people, and the only thing that people gave back to him was false accusations and lies. There was a man who told the truth all the time, didn't take the glory and the honor and the credit for himself. He told the truth, and all he got was false testimony. There was a man who practiced justice, who literally fixed the things that are wrong in our lives, and all he got was injustice. There was a man who did nothing wrong, but he was accused of terrible, horrible crimes. And there was a man who was sentenced to death and put on a cross. That's not a friendly, happy message for Easter. I love celebrating with you, and I'm happy that we get to rejoice today. Real Easter is founded on a terrible, horrible reality. It's like getting the message that you've been celebrating your birthday on 1/1/81 your whole life, but you were actually born on 2/2/82, and you need to rebuild your entire world. That's what Easter says to you and me. Now, Easter is absolutely, the resurrection of Jesus is absolutely a miraculous claim. But it doesn't add any more absurdity into your life than you already deal with every day. Each one of us, every one of us, deals with all kinds of crazy, absurd ideas every day. But this truth that Jesus died and rose does not make our lives any more crazy, weird, or out of the norm than they already were. The message of Easter is simply this, that the second person of the Trinity, the eternal Son of God, became a man. He took on human flesh. And in the course of his life, which was a very good and right, innocent life, he was accused of terrible things which he didn't do, and he was put to death for them. On the third day, he rose, so that he then could be risen and ascended to the highest place that rules over all things. He sits there so that he can give out to you and I all of the good gifts that he has won for us. He fulfilled the responsibilities that God had given to the people of Israel to live as his perfect representatives. And he had done that so that now you and I and the whole world, instead of being held responsible for our failures, can be accepted by God. And if that doesn't shatter every little piece of your life, every little bit of that story where you've said, this is my empty tomb and it's going to shape and change my reality, then I'm not sure what else I can say to you to make it do so. But here's the thing. Here's what Easter does for you and me. It tells us this, that the world is loved and loved to death. That such love is the very essence of who God is. That behind the history that you witness is a history maker who can be trusted. That above the values that you prize is a person who embodies them. That beneath the values that you violate is the mercy to forgive. And that beyond the death you must die is the one who has pioneered resurrection. If you want to take a picture of that, that's the whole sermon in a nutshell. You can take that and take it home with you. Let me help us then take this home and keep it for ourselves. Real Easter, right? It means somebody is real life and real death for us. The other day, I went with my son to open a bank account. We had a nice time. We went to the bank, met with the personal banker, started opening the bank account. Everything was fine. Of course, he has no money in his bank account, right? Other than the $5 that I give him so that he can get started. A gentleman comes into the bank. He's doing his banking. He manages to overhear us as we're sitting there opening my son's bank account. And he walks in and he takes $10 out of his pocket and he puts it on the table and he says, "Put this in your account. I hear that you're opening a bank account. I want to encourage you to open that bank account, so keep going." Of course, we thank the man. As he gets up to leave, I get up and I say, "Hey, can I get your address? I'll have him send you a little thank you note to say thank you." He could scribble his little AJ there for you. He says, "No, I don't want any thank you for it." Now, what did Jesus do for you and I? He took a check, cash, a Zelle transfer, a Venmo, Cash App, whatever you want to think about it, of infinite value, not just $10. Because you and I have walked into a bank with a check that we can't cash. You might think your birthday is 1/1/81, but you were born on 2/2/82. You and I, by nature, we all belong to the great devil and sin that has ruled this world. And there's only one way for you and I to get out of that, and that is for the very foundations of this world to be shaken, started over, turned over, and for the Son of God himself to give up his life so that there is an infinite cash placed in your account. Real Easter, real life for you and me. That's Easter. And I'm going to end and ask us just to pray today. I'll pray for each of you that you would know the very earth-shattering, world-changing foundations of what Jesus did on this Easter Sunday, and that it would reorient you. And if you've been living a story that makes all of this tomb feel not like nonsense, maybe rewrite the story. Think about that story and change it. Get rid of it. Because there's a far better story. There's a story of a real man who really died in an Easter tomb and was empty there for you and me. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, on this Easter Sunday, we love the fact that we get to rejoice, we get to celebrate. There's something sobering, though, about this reality, that you had to die to reshape and reform all of reality, to give us new birth on a different day. And I pray for everybody here. I pray that they would know Jesus as their Lord, that they would trust that he has remade not just their little life, but the entire world in a way that allows them to enjoy the values that they really want to live up to and leave behind the values that they hate. I pray that they would enjoy the forgiveness of sins and the new life that can be found only in Jesus Christ. I pray for this all in your name, our Savior and our Lord. Amen.